everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about the subtraction algorithms for other bases. So just like with the addition algorithms and other bases, the point of this lesson is to help you understand what your students will be experiencing when they're learning base 10 subtraction for the first time. Because you've been doing subtraction for a long time in base 10, but you've never probably done it in base 6 or base 5. And so by doing these algorithms in other bases, you'll be able to understand the process more so that you can help your students when they're learning base 10 for the first time. So let's start off with number line subtraction. So if I had the number 2, 3 in base 6 and I wanted to subtract 5 in base 6, the way that we could model this with a number line is we could first of all go to the number 2, 3 on the number line, which is right here. So that's the number 2, 3, and if I want to subtract 5 in base 6, I'm basically just going to go back 5 units. So I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that gets me to the number 1, 4 in base 6. So in base 6, 2, 3 minus 5 would equal the number 1, 4. And another way you could also think about this problem is you could use the missing addend approach. And you could say, okay, well, 5 base 6 plus what is going to equal 23 base 6 or 2, 3 base 6. So if you were thinking about it in that way, you would kind of say, okay, well, to get from 5 up to 2, 3, I would need to add 1 unit to get to the 1, 0 mark or the 6 mark. Then I would need to add a 6 block, and then I would need to add 3 units. And if you look at that, if you have 1 6 block and these 3 units plus this unit, that gives you 1, 4 base 6. So you can also use that missing addend approach if that's an easier way for you to do that. And when you're doing multi-digit subtraction, it's helpful to use the base 6 blocks. So if I have 3, 4, 1 base 6, I'm going to have 3 of my 36 blocks. So there's my 3. Then I'm going to have 4 6 rods. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to have 1 unit block. And if I want to take away 2, 1, 1, 6, then I can take it away place value by place value. So I can say, okay, I'm going to take away 1 unit. I'm going to take away 1 rod. And I'm going to take away 2 of my 36 plates. So this is the amount I take away, and what I have left is 0 units. I have 3 6 rods and 1 of my 36 plates. And so 3, 4, 1 base 6 minus 2, 1, 1 base 6 is going to equal 1, 3, 0 base 6. And that's how you would do that problem. Now that one's pretty simple because you didn't have to borrow or exchange any place values. So let's do an example where we do need to borrow. So in our next example, we have 2 of our 6 cubed place values, which would basically be 2 of the 216 blocks that are shown here. And then I have 1 36 plate and 3 rods. So here's 1, 2, 3 rods and 4 of my units. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm taking that and I want to subtract 4 plates, 3 rods, and 5 units. So let's start with the units, but since I only have 4 units and I want to take away 5 of them, I'm going to need to take one of my rods and exchange it for my units. So I'll exchange those for 6 units. And basically what I just did there is I'm going to cross off my 3 and I'm going to say, well, now I have 2 rods, but I have 1, 4 of my units because I have 6 units that came from the rod and then 4 units that came from the units I already had. And I'm going to take away 5 of those. So one of my favorite ways to think through this with a thinking strategy is to say, okay, well, if I take away 5 from the base, so basically like if I just had the 6 units, if I took away 5 of them, then that would mean I only have 1 of them left. So here I'll go ahead and take away 5 from this base or this rod that I just exchanged. And now I just have 1 left. And then when I also combine those 4 that I started with, that tells me that 1 4 minus 5 in base 6 equals the number 5. And I'll write this in yellow so that we can know that that has to do with the units. Okay, so now I have 2 rods and I need to take away 3 rods. Well, obviously you can't take away 3 rods if you only have 2. So I'm going to take this plate and exchange it for 6 rods. And so what that means is now I have 0 plates and I have 1, 2 rods. And if I take away 3 of the rods from the ones that I exchanged, if I take away 3 from these 6, that means that I'll just have 3 left. And with these 2 as well, that means that I'm going to have 5 left in that column. So 1, 2 minus 3 equals the number 5 in base 6. Then my next thing I want to do is I want to take away 4 plates, but I don't have any plates to take them away from. So I'm going to take this 216 block and I'm going to exchange it for 6 of my 36 plates. And when I take away 4 from that, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4 from there, then that means that I have 1, 2 left over because 6 minus 4 would give me 2. And the way that I would write this out is I'd say, well, I borrowed one of my 6 cubed blocks and exchanged it for 6 36 blocks. And 6 minus 4 equals 2. Because remember, this number in base 6 is the number 6. And then for my last step, if I have 1 216 block minus nothing, that's just going to be 1. And so my answer is 1255 base 6. So let's just kind of go through the algorithms and talk about how you would think through it if you weren't using the blocks. So the blocks are really helpful to start with, but you also want to make sure that you know how to do it without the blocks. So if I had 1352 base 6 minus 453 base 6, I would start with my ones column and I would say, okay, well, I can't do 2 minus 3. So I'm going to borrow from my 6's column, which means that I'll only have 4 in my 6's column. And then I'll have 1, 2 in my units column. And so to use my thinking strategies, if I'm doing 1, 2 base 6 minus 3, I might start off by just subtracting 2 and then subtracting 1. So if I do 1, 2 minus 2, that's going to get me down to 1, 0, which is the number 6. And if I subtract 1 more from that, that will equal the number 5. And so 1, 2 minus 3 in base 6 will be the number 5. And if you want to, you can also write out a number line to help you see this better. Because if I wrote out a number line for base 6, I'd have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is written as 1, 0, then 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, and then once you get up to 6 again, you change place values again, so you'd have 2, 0, and so on and so forth. And so when I was doing 1, 2 minus 3, I was basically starting at 1, 2 and going back 3 units. So if you want to use the number line to help you figure those out, you can do that too. Then we'll move on to the next place value and we'll say, okay, well, if I have 4 rods and I want to take away 5 of them, well, I don't have enough, so I'm going to borrow from my next place value, which means that I'll have 2 36 plates, and one of the 36 plates will be exchanged for 6 of the rods. And then I'll say, okay, well, if I do 1, 4 minus 5, I could use a thinking strategy and first subtract 4. So 1, 4 minus 4 would just be 1, 0. Then if I subtract 1 more from that, that would also be the number 5. Or you could show that on the number line by going to 1, 4 and going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And that would work as well. So that would be that place value. Then for my next place value, I would say, okay, if I have 2 plates minus 4 plates, well, I don't have enough of the plates. So I'll borrow from my next place value, which means I'll have 0 of the 216 blocks, and I'll have 1, 2 of the plates. And then to use my thinking strategies to do 1, 2 minus 4, I'll kind of write out the way I'm going to think about it. So if I do 1, 2 minus 4, I'm going to think about it as 1, 2 minus 2 minus 2, because 1, 2 minus 2 will be 6, or 1, 0. And if I do 1, 0, or 6 minus 2, that will give me the number 4. Or again, you could do this on the number line as well. If you start at 1, 2 and go back 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 units, you can see you end up at the spot 4. So that's how you could solve it using a standard algorithm. Or another way that you can solve these problems is to use a subtract from the base algorithm. So if we were using the subtract from base algorithm, we would say, okay, if I have 2 units and I want to take away 3 of them, I can't do that because there's only 2 and I want to take away 3. So I'm going to take one of my next place values, which in this case is the rods, and I'm going to take 1 away from there. So now I'll only have 4 rods, and I'm going to exchange that rod that I borrowed for 6 of my units. And rather than writing it like I did over here, I'm going to write it as the number 6, which in base 6 is written as 1, 0. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, if I had 6 minus 3, that would be the number 3. And so you do the subtraction from the part that you borrowed. So you say 6 minus 3 is 3, but I still have these 2 units as well. And so that means I have a total of 5 units. So the difference in the way that we're thinking about it is in the standard algorithm, when we did 1, 2 minus 3, I kind of thought about it as 1, 2 minus 2 minus 1, which gave me the number 5, because 1, 2 minus 2 gave me just 6, and then 6 minus 1 equaled 5. Versus over here, the way we're thinking about this is we're thinking about 1, 2 minus 3 as being 2 plus 6 minus 3, and we do the subtraction from the 6 place value, and then we just add the 2 on. So you still get the same result either way, it's just a different way of thinking about it. So for the next place value, we say, okay, well, if I have 4 rods and I want to take away 5 of them, I don't have enough to take it away, so I'm going to borrow from my next place value, which means I'll have 2 plates left, and then I'll have 6 rods with my 4 rods that I already had there. Then I'll say, okay, well, if I do 6 minus 5, that's the number 1, but I still have these 4 rods as well, so 1 plus those 4 rods will give me the number 5. And then for my next place value, if I want to do 2 minus 4, I can't do that because I don't have enough of the plates, so I'll borrow from my next place value, which gives me 0 of the big blocks. And the big block, when I exchange it for plates, will become 6 of the plates. And if I take those 6 plates and I subtract 4 of them, that gives me 2 of them. And then if I also include these 2, that's going to be a total of 4 plates. And so you see, you get the same answer either way. It's just the way that you're thinking about it and approaching it. So that's how you do subtraction algorithms for other bases. If you have any questions, let me know.